Hello everyone, welcome back to Base Damage, and welcome back to Community Fridays. This week we have a Eminence and Shadow deck by Joker. He titled it The Poor Man's Eminence. I haven't looked through the deck just yet, but I believe that means he didn't run any like double rares or anything, so it's like rare and lower only because there is some really fun combos in it. Let's go ahead and hop right into it. This is what people typically like to call an Exodia build. It is an 8 pants. But it's the fact that there are multiple climax combos that combo off the same particular pants, the same particular climax. So to see that is always very interesting. Plus, there are some conditions in these effects, like at least on the Delta and whatnot. I know there's an effect where there can't be more than like 2 copies of them on the field and everything. We'll get to that when we get to it, but just wanted to point that out. So it's interesting to have it where you can have the different girly pops and kind of go off that way. This is basically the closest to like a Shadow Garden deck as you're going to get right now. So let's hop right into it. So it is mainly blue. We're starting off with 3 copies of Counter-Strike Epsilon. It's a 3/2/9K. If you have 4 or more Eminence Shadow characters, this gets -1 level while in your hand. Place on stage from hand. If you have 2 or more other Eminence characters, choose 1 character in your clock. Now, it has to be a character. And put it face up underneath this card as a marker. Now, I don't think you do anything else with that marker afterwards, but it heals. That's the important thing. Heals for free. When this card is frontaled, you can pay 2 and pitch 1. If you do, this card gets the following ability until end of turn. The character facing this card gets -2 soul, so reduce how much damage you're trying to receive there. 3 copies of Onslaught Delta is a 3/2/9K. During this card's battle, your opponent cannot play backup from their hand. They can still play events, but they can't use backup characters or anything of that nature. When this is placed on stage from hand, you can deal 1 damage to your opponent, which is also interesting because you typically see this on a level 3 would typically be like, oh, play this, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's the trait of whatever set you're playing, then you can burn 1, but it's just, this enters the field, burn 1, just outright. But that is Delta for you. When this card attacks, if Sortie, and I thought it was called Soiree, I don't know why I thought it was like a French pronunciation or some shit, but if Sortie is in your climax area and you have 1 or less other Onslaught Delta, so you can only ever have, basically the math for that checks out where you can only have 2 copies of her on field when you do this. Which I guess this would be a little broken if you could just like outright play 3. 1 or less other, you pay 2 if you do burn 2. So just, she's all about the burn damage and really trying to finish out the game. So 3 copies of her, 2 copies of Deploying Zeta is a 3/2/10K. Placed on stage from your hand, you can pay 1. If you do, your opponent puts all of their stock into their waiting room and put the same number of cards from the top of their deck into their stock. Yes, there is a stock swap in the set. I honestly forgot about that. When this card attacks, if Sortie is in your climax area and you have 1 or less other Deploying Zeta, so once again, you can only have 2 copies of her max. Look at up to 2 cards from the top of your opponent's deck. Choose up to 1 card amongst them, put it at the bottom of their deck, and put the other on top of their deck in any order. So you can just put both back, and then this gets 3k power until end of turn. When you look at the 2, if you needed to be like, okay, cool, let me put a climax on the bottom of the deck or something, you could. Instead of, it feels weird because, I mean, a lot of times you'll see this and you can just outright put like a climax into the waiting room and just get it out of play. But it's whatever. You can just choose to put both 2 cards back on top of the deck and just not care and be like, okay, cool, I see the information, I try to burn. So then we have 3 copies of Her Resolve Alpha is a 3/2/10K. Place on stage from hand, look at up to 3 cards from the top of your deck, choose 1 card amongst them, put it into your hand, rest go to waiting room. So you can use her to dig for the climax, but it's also 8 pants, you're gonna probably see it anyway. When this card attacks, if Sortie is in your climax area and you have 2 or more other characters and only 1 or less other copies of herself. So you do have to have other characters, but once again, no more than 2 copies of herself. You can pay the cost, which is pay 1, pitch 3. If you do, deal 2 damage to your opponent, and if that damage gets canceled, burn 3. And if that burn 3 gets canceled, burn 4, which is just hilarious to me, which is why the cost is so big. It is really trying to like make your opponent take damage. And the funny thing is, like, okay, if they somehow live through all of that, that means you burned 3 climaxes off the top of their deck, and then you still have all the attacks to go through, which is still kind of nuts there. So it just is very cost heavy. It's hand heavy for that, but it's whatever. 1 copy of the 2/1 Scouting Report Beta is a level assist to characters in front. Beginning of your main phase or climax phase, you may look at the top card of your deck. The information's always nice. Act of rest this, look at 2 cards from the top of your opponent's deck and put them on top of their deck in any order. Next, we're already past the level 2s. We're into the level 1s. So, one copy of Form Restored Alpha is a 102K. It's a free 2K backup, basically. So, understandable there. 4 copies of the vanilla. We have Fight Against Fate Epsilon, just a standard 1055, but there is a card that combos with it, or like a bonder or something. I gotta look. We have, how many copies? Oh, we have 1 copy. Sorry, I was like, I didn't look at the thing. It's a level 1 anti-change backup. You get to put bottom deck it as well. When you use the card's backup, pitch 2 cards from hand, pick an opponent's character with a level higher than their level and put it on the bottom of their deck. Very nice there. And it's a random 1,000 backup. They never see it coming. 3 copies of Advancing Omega. I'm surprised you don't have more of this. Oh, that's what it is. So this is the bonder, and as well as it buffs itself, which is like other copies of itself, which is kind of funny here. So it is a 1025. All of your other Advancing Omega and Fight Against Fate Epsilon, which is the vanilla, get 2,500 power. So I understand what the goal is here. It's really funny if you have more copies of this though, because then you can just go, cool, there's like 2 copies of this backstage, and then like every single copy of this in the center stage is going to gain plus 5k as a level 1. It's just really, really funny to just wall up like this and just make it so your opponent's just going to have a bad day. When the reason being, when this card is placed on stage from hand, you can discard an Eminence character, search your deck for a Fight Against Fate Epsilon, and just grab the vanillas. So, very understandable, and I kind of like that, just being able to wall it with vanillas like that. It's just really funny. 2 copies of Released Aurora 00500. If your level is 2 or higher, you can pay 1, put this standing card into your memory. If you do search your deck for a level 2 or higher character, reveal it to your opponent and put it into your hand. So you can use this to grab your level 3 combos with whatever you don't have. Very nice. It's kind of interesting to have that and then just be like, cool, I'm going to grab a stock swap on demand. Just kind of funny there. And her second effect, you actually can't use both effects in the same turn, because one is a rest to give a character 1,500, but for her first effect, you have to be standing to do this search. So it's really dumb that they did that you can't just go, cool, tap, give something 15, and then pay 1 and send this to memory and then still search. But I understand, like, I realize it'd probably be a little too powerful with that, but it's whatever. I think they could have got away with it. In today's meta, it's whatever. It needs everything it can get. 0025 King Oriana, just how I feel drained, after a day of work. This cannot side attack, but when this card is put into Waiting Room from this stage, you can pay 1, put an Eminence and Shadow character from Waiting Room at the bottom of your clock. If you do, look at up to 2 cards from the top of your deck, choose up to 2 Eminence characters amongst them, add them to your hand, put the rest into Waiting Room. So very nice. Just this is basically what people refer to as the Aqua level, what it's called, an Aqua Ricky. Basically on death, being able to like burn yourself to be able to try to add cards to hand. So 3 copies of Summoned Olivier is a 0015. Place on stage from hand, you can choose up to 2 Jack Nelson the Avaricious in your Waiting Room, put them on the bottom of your deck in any order. The only thing is he doesn't run any of the Jack Nelson, so it's kind of whatever. Act, pay 1, put this into your memory, look at up to 3 cards from the top of your deck, choose up to 1 Eminence and Shadow character amongst them, add it to your hand, put the rest into Waiting Room. And the memory does turn into some compression, so that does matter. 2 copies of Book Signing Beta is a 00500. During your turn, it gets 1,000 power, which is kind of whatever. But when this is placed on stage from hand, you can put an Eminence character from hand into Waiting Room. If you do, search your deck for a character with the same card name as a character in your stage. Reveal it to your opponent, put it into your hand, and shuffle your deck. Now, this matters at multiple points of the game. Because you have cards like the Vanilla Epsilon and the Advanced Omega that does require multiple copies of them to be able to do like what they do, it does kind of matter, because being able to get the multiple copies means you're going to get you're going to be big, you're going to have your wall set up. And a lot of these other level 3 combos specifically only want you to have 1 or less other copies of them. So if you're like, oh damn, it'd be nice if I had 1 more copy of Onslaught Delta, or if you wanted one of the other ones, that's up to you. But being able to go, cool, I'm just going to grab like another copy of what I need is just very, very nice. This artwork, though. 2 copies of just Beta, 0025. She's looking at a Beta right now. Anyway, when this is placed on stage from hand, you can put a Climax from your hand into Waiting Room and put an Eminence character from your Waiting Room at the bottom of your clock. If you do, choose 1 Climax in your Waiting Room and return it to your hand. So you're damaging yourself for the Climax swap, but it's also kind of whatever. So 2 copies of New 13 New is a 002K. Place on stage from hand, pay 1, pitch 1 if you on attack. Place on stage or during when you attack, you can pay 1, pitch 1 if you do search your deck. That's actually way better. So 3 copies of Lending a Hand Shadow. This is the other climax combo of the deck. 0015. All of your other Eminence and Shadow characters get 500 power. When Stylish Bandit Slayer is placed in your climax area and you have 2 or more other Eminence and Shadow characters, look at the top card of your deck, choose up to 1 event or Eminence character from amongst them, reveal it to your opponent, put it in your hand, put the rest into your waiting room. So basically just look at the top card, add it to hand basically, unless it's a climax. So that's the only time it doesn't go off. 3 copies of the 7 Shadows Delta 0015. When your climax with a pants trigger is triggered, you can discard a card. If you do, choose 1 card in your clock, return it to your hand, and put the top card of your deck into your clock. So it's not seeing the clock swapper effects like this doesn't happen that much anymore. Very nice there. And a Brainstorm, pay 1, rest this mill 4 for each climax revealed. You get to choose 1 character in your waiting room and return it to your hand. But 4 copies of Sortie. Once again, I thought this was pronounced a different way. And 4 copies of the Stylish Bandit Slayer. Now, I do believe there was some other cards that also comboed off of Stylish Bandit Slayer. If I'm misremembering that, I'm so sorry. But you could, I think those may have also been like double rares, which is why he didn't want to have to do that. But Poor Man's Eminence, I still think you can do a lot with this deck, and I do feel this is just a very good entry point. I feel that this is going to be, because people were opening a lot of Eminence, I feel you can build this for very, very cheap, and obviously that's the way to go. But that is going to be it for us today. Thank you very much once again to Joker for sharing this, and once again, I want to see more Eminence and Shadow Cooks. I don't think it's the best set in the world after seeing the rest of the reveals, but I want to see people do stuff with it. I like the concept of it, and I feel it has potential, especially if they do another set, because I think they only covered like season 1 with the first volume, so I think there should be room to do more. I don't remember, but anyway. Let's see more in the future, and if you also want to submit your own deck profiles for the Community Fridays submissions and everything, there is a link in the description will be for the Discord, and in the Discord there's 2 different Weiss channels. There is a decklist submissions for people who just want to share their cooks, and there is specifically a Community Fridays tab, and feel free to post in either of those channels. It is whatever, but do please post the deck log links, because I'm much more likely to show off the deck log post instead of the other. So that is gonna be it. Thank you very much for watching. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, all the cringy YouTuber shenanigans, and remember, as always, to stay based.